Hello everyone and welcome back to another video, and today I will be giving you my very own Sarcosuchus TLC. Now, I know I previously did this with Stegosaurus, but you guys seem to love it, so today you're going to get my ideas completely for Sarcosuchus' TLC. This is going to be new stats, new abilities, and speculations on possible model changes. Anyway, if you are new here, make sure to like and subscribe. Also, check out the description. There will be a link to my new Discord. Feel free to go join that. And yeah, let's get straight into the video. And starting with the new stats for my Sarcosuchus TLC. I will also be comparing these to the current in-game stats, just so you guys can get an idea of what my thought process was. So, the health. Currently, it's 480. I have moved it to 1,000. Combat weight currently is 5,000. I've changed it to 4,500. Now, that might sound like a bad thing. Less combo weight, But Sarcosuchus is a sub-apex, and I feel like giving it over double the health, it shouldn't weigh the same as what it does. You know, following the vanilla changes of less combat weight, more health type thing. And then we have armor is 1, that's the same as base game. And then we go on to speed. So, for the walk, 250, trot, 400, sprint, 900. Now, the sprint, that is currently the same as in-game right now. So not the public test bench, but currently in-game is still 900. And then we have swim trot of 450, so you swim quicker than you trot normally, and sprint swim is 950. So you don't swim quite at 1,000, but there are things in this TLC which can boost the speed and other things. Also, when I say in this TLC, this isn't an official thing like that, it's just me coming up with ideas. Anyway, let's move on to the meat of the video, the abilities. Starting off with the passives, we have got 2 slots here. The first one is probably the most obvious thing on the planet, and it is basking. So, when sitting or sleeping on land, gain 3% more stamina and acceleration every 5 seconds you do that. Stacks up to 10, so 50 seconds max stacks. Stacks go away 1 at a time and last 30 seconds each. So, there's a chance you can get 30% more stamina and acceleration just by sitting on land with this. I don't know. I thought this was cool. I didn't really have too many ideas for basking, but this is what I came up with, so I thought that was pretty cool. The next one is pressure reception. So quickly, just in case none of you guys know about crocodiles, I'm pretty sure Sarco had this as well. But they got little bumps on their nose, little dimples, and they use those to sense around in the water, which is where I got this idea from. So anyway, yes, pressure reception. When underwater, gain the ability to detect the closest player sprint swimming within 150 meters. It will show up on the UI bar, so like, you know, where the wet, thing shows up and like buffs and debuffs show up, that UI bar. Just like Cerato's Corpse Finder. So Cerato's Corpse Finder and Suko's Fish Finder, actually, their arrows, they get brighter the closer you get. This would be the same, but for Sarcosuchus, which I think would be pretty cool, and it would be like, let's say an aquatic is swimming, or a semi, or even someone swimming across a river. If they're in the water within 150 meters, they're the closest person to you, and they're sprint swimming, it'll detect them. And that's all I got for the passives. Let me know what you think about those in the comments below. Next up, we have got the generic slot. So this is like just, you don't even look at this. This is just there forever. In the generic slot, sorry, I put the grab. So this will gain the ability to grab targets. I copied Quetz and even the public test branch T-Rex. They both have got this with grab. I think even Sark when the public test branch does. So yeah, it's just kind of there. Next up, we have got head. This is the 2 slots. So there's 2 slots for head. And the first one is a bite. Default bite, it causes medium damage, 50 damage, and 1.5 second cooldown. So, like, I've written medium damage in my notes, but that's just because how the game writes. It actually does 50 damage, 1.5 second cooldown. So it's, it's not too strong of a bite, but it's not too weak either. Then we've got hard grip. So this is less of an active ability, more like a sense. So similar to like T-Rex's face tank. Remember that thing? Yeah, I'm glad it's gone. So hard grip allows you to use your bite on grabbed targets and not drop them, squeezing them in your jaws. Also, I forgot to mention the carry weight for Sarco. I have moved it up to 3,250, which is more than the 3,001 it currently has. So you can grab up to, like, I think a Chilibata, maybe a little bit larger. You can't grab Alberta Ceratops, so that thing's out the way. Can't grab that. But you can grab a Chillo, which is pretty cool, I think. But anyway, yeah, hard grip. So the thing with this is I wanted it to be like Rex's Chew, but with Sarco. And since crocodiles don't really like constantly bite up and down, this was more of like they just increase the pressure. So it'd be like every time you bite, your jaw would squeeze the person you've grabbed to do the damage. I don't know how that would work. Probably unrealistic, but I thought it was cool. Then next up, we have got Heavy Snap, a bite causing heavy damage, and it actually causes 20 fracture and 5% less movement speed to targets when bitten on the legs or ankles. So, because Sarko's low to the ground, I took a bit of, I noticed that it's hard to hit things sometimes in the head. So, this is like, you don't really need to aim upwards. So, let's say there's an apex and it's running, it's like a T Rex for a good example, or Tyranotitan, and it's by the water. I can use this bite on their legs and ankles, and it will give them 20 fracture and 5% less movement speed. I think the 5% less movement speed I think I wrote would last for like 10 seconds, so it's not incredible, but it's still there. And the bite itself would do 80 damage with a 3-second cooldown, which is pretty cool. And then next up, we have Charge Bite, a charge bite that causes heavy damage. Charge up the attack for 3 seconds and do heavy damage, 130 damage, which is a lot, 5 stamina, and it costs 7. Oh, sorry, it has 5 stamina cost and has a 7-second cooldown. So it's the only bite that actually uses stamina. It's got a pretty long cooldown, high damage, but don't worry, the damage that looks pretty insane, I've managed to cook up a few little builds you can do with Sarco, because I like having different types of builds, and I think Alderon's doing that as well anyway. Next up, we've got sensors. And for sensors, I came up with a few ideas. Now, one of them does kind of mix in with the charge bite. So we have got Robust Jaws, reduces the damage of charge bite by 25%, so that's a good chunk less damage, but it gives it 50 fracture. So, by different builds, I meant like you can combine this with Heavy Snap to do 70 fracture. Not full bone break, but still a huge chunk of fracture. So, I don't know. I thought the combinations could be cool, especially in groups and stuff. But yeah, you do get 25% less damage on the charge bite, but it's only that bite. And then the second sense I came up with was Ambush. Your first attack before combat does 25 more damage. And this also makes your grab do 20 damage by itself. So when you grab a target, it'll do 20 damage rather than nothing. However, if you can't grab the target, so let's say it's a T-Rex, the grab will still do 0 damage. Because, I think that makes a bit of sense. If you can't grab it, it shouldn't damage. But if you can, it should grab you, you know? Oh, it should damage you. I don't know. It's a bit difficult to come up with different abilities. I'm trying, okay. But yeah, so it's like an ambush sense, but then it also gives your grab a bit more damage. So again, 25% more damage on your first attack in combat, which I thought was pretty cool. This next one, the name itself is a little bit of a hint to a real life crocodile. Gustav. When solo, gain 10% armor and 5% attack. So Alderon seems to want to make Sarcosuchus like a killer croc again, because when it was like back in Pandora, before Gondor, this thing was a menace. It was killing everything. And I think they want to kind of go back to that a little bit, because Sarko kind of fell off. So this Gustav sense only works when you're solo, but you gain 10% armor and 5% attack. So it's like a lone survivor, but instead of getting any maneuverability, you just get 5% more damage instead, rather than acceleration, which is what the maneuverability is. Then we move on to front limb, which I gave 1 slot. I only came up with 2 things for this, and they're both passives. But they add a bit of use to the way you can use Sarko. So the first one, Bottom Dweller. When on the bottom of rivers or lakes, gain 10% stamina regeneration and 5% acceleration. So obviously this is for the water. If you're crawling along the bottom of a lake or river, or just on the floor of them, you will get the buffs. So 10% stamina regeneration and 5% acceleration could be used to combo with ambushing, which, I don't know, some of you guys might figure out to do that. The next one is Land Hunter. When on land, gain 5% run speed and stamina, and 10% more turning on land. So this is for more of those land-type Sarco players, the people who want to go on land and destroy people as a land croc. This kind of gives you the ability to do that a little bit easier. Next up, we've got Metabolism, and these are pretty generic, but I did add a custom one. So obviously, it's going to have Scavenger eat meat, bones, carrion bones, and noxious meat, and then it's going to have Hyper Carnivore to eat only bones. No, sorry, only meat. God, I'm bad with words right now. But I've also added Predator. Eats any living creature, can eat fresh meat, fish, insects, noxious meat, and it also has fast food drain. So you can eat anything with this. So literally any living creature, so not bones or carrion, but any living creature, which I'm classing insects as living. The noxious meat is for the platy because that's a living creature, it's a critter. I just thought it'd be like, make Sarco seem a bit more bloodthirsty. You know, like an actual predator. Predatory Sarcosuchus behavior. But that's all we have for metabolism. And then we have hides. So with hides, I came up with a few different ideas. This is also only one slot. So the first one, bulletproof skin, gain 15% armor and fracture healing. So this is because Sarco itself is incredibly tanky, not tanky, sorry, incredibly armored in real life. Uh, and I thought it kind of made sense that it should not only get a bit more armor, but also some fracture resistance, because they're quite well-made animals, crocodile morphs and stuff like that. Then the next one is resistance scoots. Gain 30% increased resistance to bleed, venom, paralysis, toxin, and poison. So every status effect except fracture, you get some more resistance to in some way. Which, you know, everything's got that. Yeah, it just makes sense for Sarko to have it too. And then the last one. This one is a bit of a different one. Incomplete armor. When equipped at juvenile, you gain 15% speed. So not 50, 15, 1 5. You gain 15% speed. At adolescence, you gain 10% speed minus 5% armor. And then at subadult, you gain 5% speed and 5% armor. So it's really good at subadult. But then at adult, you gain 3% speed and 10% turn in water. So the reason I made this is because, like, incomplete armor, you should be faster but not as tanky. And I wanted to give something unique to different growth stages as well. So at juvenile, you gain more speed. It's just better to run around with and also swim with. But I didn't take any armor because it's a baby. Like, there's no point. Adolescence, you gain quicker. You slow down by 5, and you also lose a bit of armor because I don't know. It's an adolescent Sarco. It should be pretty weak. Adolescence, I'd say, is one of the worst growth stages in the game because you're not as quick as juvenile, but you're also not strong enough like a subadult. And then subadult, you gain 5% speed and armor, so this is like peak. This is the peak ability for this hide. And then at adult, you just gain more turning and 3% speed. Also, it's only 10% turn in water. Just so it has some use, rather than just being, oh, I'm adult, I will take this off now. Next up, we've got backlimb. This is 2 slots. And the first backlimb ability I could come up with is probably the most requested one from the community, and that is a death roll for a Sarco. So, death roll, you would perform a death roll on grabbed targets. Each death roll causes 1.5 seconds of stutter. So what stutter does is it's a custom effect I came up with, and it would basically stop the person you've grabbed from being able to book. So for 1.5 seconds, they couldn't book. It's basically like a parry, but for booking. Because I don't know, it's not. There's nothing like that in the game. I thought it would be quite cool rather than just having a hide that reduces it. This actually makes that feature useful. It would also have a 15 stamina cost, so you can't just spam the ability, and it would do 45 damage on a 2.5 second cooldown. So it would allow you to grab targets longer, but it also does drain your stamina as well. But I don't know. I just thought it would be cool if it could have performed something to do with bucking, just because you're like ragdolling a small, poor animal around. I mean, the stamina cost could also be lowered to like 10 or even 7, but I thought 15 was a pretty good amount. Next up, we've got Energetic Thrash. When on land, perform a 180-degree turn bite, causes medium damage. So it would do 60 damage, 3-second cooldown, and have 5 stamina cost. So this is obviously a 180-degree bite, but just on land. Like, well, I mean, like they normally are, but not really, because we kind of have jukes, but they don't bite. So this is like a juke, but it bites. Then I also came up with Aquatic Surprise. So, when in the water, perform a 180-degree turn bite, which causes medium damage, 60 damage, 3-second cooldown, 5 stamina cost. Exactly the same as the land one, except it's for the water. Now, these could be put into one ability, but I don't know, I feel like it would just be too easy. And you also might get confused and stuff like that. Plus, the ability would need unique animations for going on land and water. It's just a lot of effort, so it's just much better and easier to have it in 2 abilities for the devs and anyone using it as well. But yeah, so you get a Duke, which is just a bite for on land and in the water, and a death roll, but you can only have 2 of those at once. So you got to make your choice. Do you want aquatic stuff or land stuff? But I kind of try to fit the aquatic and land build type thing rather than just, oh, you do more damage to certain targets if they're dry or not. Like, that's boring. So I kind of try to shake it up a little and give it some abilities that actually are specifically good for different environments. Anyway, next up we have got Tail, and this I gave 3 slots. So, the first one, Lunge. Perform a quick lunge. When used to go on land, it can be comboed with Bite to do 25% extra damage on the first ability used during the lunge. So let's say I lunge and then Bite. My Bite will do 25% more damage. Yes, you can stack this with Ambush. So, Sarco could, I know a lot of people like to do the charge by thing where they charge by, back off, rinse, repeat. My TLC still allows you to do that, but you got to do it with a mix of other abilities. This also costs 10 stamina and has a 10-second cooldown. So that's just my way of balancing it. You can't just do it infinitely. It costs stamina, and it has a pretty long cooldown. And then next I have Swimming Rush. Perform a quick charge used to ram into swimming foes. This does 5 knockback, 40 damage, and it can also stun opponents for 1.5 seconds. It only stuns things that are lighter than you. So if you're like a T-Rex in the water or a Spino, it won't stun you. But if you're a Concavenator or Megalania, 1.5 seconds of being unable to move. So it works similar to Miragai's Paralysis, except no particle effects and just a shorter duration. This would have 10 stamina and a 15-second cooldown, so you can't spam that either. Then Deflective Tail. When attacked on your tail, automatically retaliates with a tail slap, causing 5 knockback and 10 damage, 8-second cooldown, and it shares a cooldown with the tail attack. Tail attack. Perform a tail attack causing low knockback and damage, 5 knockback, 5 damage, 3.5-second cooldown, shares cooldown with Deflective Tail. So, at one point, you might think Deflective Tail is useless because it's over double the cooldown, only does 5 more damage. However, it's automatic. It's just a bit of a easy breeze type thing. Like, you don't need to think about tail attacks, it does it on its own. But then if you want to manually do it, which a lot of people probably will choose to do that, you can do the normal one, which has a little bit less damage, still the same knockback, and over half the cooldown. So, yeah, but I made them share a cooldown, so you can't just spam tail attacks, because that's annoying. And then we have the last abilities, the voices. So I kind of was struggling for Sarco voices, because we don't really have any ideas of what Sarco would do when it roars in terms of pathotines. Like, what buffs can I give it other than just damage and stuff? Well, I came up with this one. Long Diver, halves oxygen drain for 2 minutes, has a 3-minute cooldown. So it would basically allow you to stay under the water for a lot longer, and it has a 5 stamina cost. And then Warning Shot. Make a loud snap sound, gain 10% more damage on the first attack, can only be used solo and out of combat. 300-second cooldown, and 5 stamina cost. So this is, again, fitting into that ambush ability. I really want Sakura to be an ambusher, to the point where it can't one-shot a lot of things, but there are some things which it can one-shot if you use every ability to the most. Because I think at most you can give yourself like 60% more damage with the stuff I've come up with. Oh no, that's just what I came up with. So those are the voice abilities. But that's kind of the end of abilities. Now onto the model change. And when it comes to the model change, I didn't have too many issues with Sarko's model. There is only a few things which I think are flaws. So the main thing that I would adjust is the body armor of Sarko. You all know it. Here, I'll have a little side profile. You see on the top of the Sarko, it's got these like really thick scoots. They don't look like they actually fit the Sarko. I'm pretty sure Sarko had armor like that in real life, but in game it looks like it's just Legos stacked onto the model. It doesn't look like it's part of the body. I don't know. It feels like it's too high, or something like that. That's a bad way of putting it. It just feels like it's too much of its own thing to be body armor. It's more just like it's something that you could peel off and just exist without. But I'd also change some of the textures. Now, when it comes to sizing, I think Path of Titan Sarko is maybe too big, maybe not. I don't know. I'm not 100% on Sarko's sizing, but I think currently in game, I personally am happy with how big it is. I think it's fine. It's not like a Spino where it's way too big, or Megalania where it's upsized just to fit in. But apart from that, the only other thing I have an issue with Sarko is I think its legs are too long. I don't know. That might just be me, and maybe some stuff to do with the snout. But I'm sure Alderon will definitely update its model, some way, whether it's just textures or even a whole remodel. I'm excited for that. Anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video and my ideas about Sarko's TLC. Please let me know in the comments if you'd like to see any of these abilities or any of your thoughts on the abilities I came up with. And also, let me know any abilities you guys would want, like any ones you can come up with down below, because then I will definitely have a look and read all of those. But anyway, yes, I hope you enjoyed. Have a wonderful day, and make sure to like and subscribe, by the way. Really helps me out an absolute ton. Have a great day, and yeah, goodbye.